Here we are, new channel on a Monday, OVE podcast. How you doing? Now, if you are listening on a stream service, nothing has changed for you. Appreciate you. I'm the Torque from QFM 9060, Sam Grooms. If you're watching on Facebook, nothing has changed. Us ugly people right on your Facebook. If you're watching on X, nothing has changed. Now, if you're on YouTube, new YouTube channel. Appreciate you from following us. It's youtube.com at Ohio versus everyone. We are still part of the Menace family. In fact, tomorrow night for happy hour, Borgata Pizza Cafe, our winner, Charles, his guest, me, Sam, and the Menace boys. So you're welcome to join us. Their tab's free. Yours is not. There you go. A lot of stuff to get to today, Sam. What's up, man? How are you?
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. New channel, new life. We got to build this sucker. Let's go. I'm glad I didn't do our giveaways because I know I've been promising them, and I'm glad we're going to do all the giveaways, starting with Urban signed helmet this week on the new channel. Subscribe to the new channel. You're in the drawing. Simple as that. There you go. Let them live.
Nice. Good weekend.
Yeah, good weekend. Finally on the men, man. Yesterday I took a nap, woke up, started feeling better. There are people at my work that are still suffering from the RSV.
Ugh.
Yeah. So it happens when one person is sick and decides to be selfish and come into work.
Did that particular individual get diagnosed with RSV?
No, it didn't go. Just like slept, went into work for a few hours and then went home and slept and then went to work, spread it to everybody so they got sick. And then this person was healthy then while everybody else was sick. This person notorious for coming in sick, spreading the germs to everyone else. And, oh, my bad. Doesn't even say my bad.
We've got a particular individual who will remain nameless that is walking up and down our hallways now and sounds like a foghorn every time he coughs.
Yeah, I don't like people like that. It's like, if you're sick, don't spread it to everybody else, man. Be kind to your fellow human being. By the way, today's poll question, and there's a lot of breaking news today, by the way. How big's the loss of Chip Kelly? And it looks like Brian Hartline's the guy, Sam. I said that this morning. We talked to Steve Hellwagen, where I just said, it gets to a point now with this offense where they lose Justin Frye. We'll get to that, to the Arizona Cardinals, Sam, where you got to start keeping people. And we talked about it in the season where there was a rumor about Brian Hartline going to Florida State to be their offensive coordinator. It's only a matter of time before a big college football program says, hey, Brian Hartline, here's $2 million a year. You come here and call the shots, or here's $2.5 million. Here's $3 million a year, Brian Hartline, because you're the best recruiter when it comes to the offense in college football. And so you got to start keeping your guys. And I don't know if this means like before, Sam, where Hartline actually does get to call the plays. I don't know if Ryan Day's calling the plays. Maybe it's Brian Hartline, and then Ryan Day kind of looks at the play call and says, you know what, we're not doing that. We're going to do something else. But sooner or later, Brian Hartline had to take over the offense.
Yeah, I mean, have we ever seen this kind of attrition on a coaching staff after a national championship or after a season, nonetheless? Like, I understand that Nick Saban and Urban Meyer coaching trees and coaching staffs have always kind of been poked and prodded and have guys leave. But, I mean, you're talking about probably the three most prominent coaches on Ohio State staff right now outside of Ryan Day. You've got your OC, DC, and offensive line coach. Like, I don't care how good your offensive coordinator is. If you don't have a good offensive line, nothing's going to run right. So I'm just – the good news is they got the job done last year. So there is a little bit of this honeymoon phase to where hopefully guys can settle in a little bit. But let's also be realistic on how the typical Ohio State fan is. If they go out and lay an egg in game one against Texas, the pitchforks and the torches are probably going to have some cobwebs on them, but some people are starting to get a little probably fussy if everything doesn't look hunky-dory. So
you think so? You think that they're going to revert back to being
I mean, I don't know that it's going to be.
I think it's justified. I thought it was. I was never a fire Ryan Day guy, but I think it was justified after Michigan if you felt that way. And then and really Ryan Day had the playoffs to prove himself, and he did. So I think that goes away. I mean, if they lose to Texas, okay, it's at home. Texas has a veteran quarterback in Arch Manning. I mean, I don't know why anyone would get up unless they totally laid an egg. Let's say it was 52-zip or 52-17 and just looked at the team and said they just didn't show up. And then you start questioning the staff like, all right, they lost too much. Chip Kelly's gone. Jim Knowles gone. They hired the wrong people to replace them. Holy cow, we better figure this out.
Do I think the voices are going to be as loud as they were after the Michigan game this season? Absolutely not. But there will be some rumblings like, what have you done for me lately? I understand that Ohio State was able to win its first natty in 10 years, but
national title.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying you'll start hearing some rumblings because that's how some people are, and we all know that there was going to be this type of movement potentially. I mean, look at the bag that Chip Kelly got. He tripled his pay. He's getting $6 million in the NFL, which is based upon all reports at the beginning of the season or at the end of the season 2 years ago, where he ultimately wanted to go anyway, but it just didn't work out. So you really can't blame the guy for leaving for triple the pay to be back in what was his dream. So Ryan Day's got to make the right decision. And normally I would say, or right decisions. And normally I would have, I'd be pretty confident in what he's been able to do the last couple of years. But in the back of my head, there's also some pretty bad hires that I've seen him make. And I don't know that I'm completely on if the reports are accurate. I'm not sure that I'm on the Brian Hartline OC. I don't we've seen this before, and obviously something happened or didn't happen to the point where Ryan Day had to come back in and take over the play calling responsibilities and bring in Chip Kelly. So I'm not necessarily sure at this point that I like the hire. I reserve the right to change my mind after seeing some results, but man, I don't know.
Well, I if you look at it for a year and you look at it last year, and we were doing this podcast, and you look what happened, and the Buckeye Scoop is the one who's reporting that Hartline is the offense coordinator. Well, you go back 1 year ago, right? Bill O'Brien's hired as our offensive coordinator. Ryan Day basically didn't like how his coaching staff coached the year before. They lost to Michigan. Running Tony Alford feels disrespected. He leaves. I think they upgraded when it came to that. Bill O'Brien came in. Bill O'Brien was here about a month. Bill O'Brien left. Chip Kelly came in. I think it was just availability, right? So who was available last year? Well, Bill O'Brien was told to beat it, basically. I guess the reports were Bill O'Brien was told he could stay on the new staff. But Bill O'Brien knew that new staff wasn't going to last very long, and he was right. He decided to take his ball and go home. And then, all right, Ohio State has an opening. Then BC had an opening, and he left. And then Ryan turned to a good friend in Chip Kelly. Well, Ryan could have looked at the landscape, and you look at it like teams like this has happened to Alabama, plenty of times. And what has Nick Saban done? Gives Lane Kiffin some, a chance to resurrect his career, gives Sark a chance to resurrect his career. Over the weekend, Ryan Grubb was rehired by Alabama, so he wasn't available. So I guess it's who else is there, right? Do you take an offensive coordinator from another school? Well, you looked at the offensive coordinators last year with like Jason Candle and guys like that, and Liam Cohn, who, is now coach at Jacksonville, who wanted to stay at Kentucky. So you've kind of gone through this, and you know who's available, and who better available than the guy in your house. Right. I don't know what the other alternative was in offensive coordinator unless you went out, right? Like who else would have been available if it's not, and we're assuming this is legit information. I don't know. It's Buckeye Scoot 50-50. But if it's not Brian Hartline, who else is it?
Well, and here's
coming up in 3 weeks. I mean, you got to start filling out this staff. You got 3 huge openings. You better do something quickly.
Here's the question that I would ask. Do we assume that Ohio State, on both of these hires, do we assume that for the OC and DC that Ohio State was able to go out and actually interview external candidates? Because it's been awfully, awfully quiet, and usually things like this leak. And if the reports are accurate, it looks like they've got a DC in bringing in Randy Bates from Pitt.
But I asked about that today, and that could be another rumor.
That's the thing, because 19 hours ago, I'm looking at it now, 11 Warriors reported that Randy Bates was going to be hired to run the defense for Ohio State. And since that post has been pulled down, that webpage is no longer findable. So maybe something happened. But I guess my question is this. is if Hartline is going to be the hire, I guess I would question, why didn't they go and look and try to interview some other people? Why are they so quickly going to hire Brian Hartline? But I would also assume that Chip Kelly and Ryan Day have been communicating post-national championship probably daily and staying pretty close to the vest on what Chip's going to do. So Ryan's had a pretty good idea, and maybe kind of putting the feeler out over the last 2 weeks of who's available and who we can go get. So maybe it's a situation where they've kind of kicked the tires externally and have settled that Brian Hartline is going to be the guy. It is the best for this position. So the only thing that kind of concerns me is typically when you have a big university or big program like this doing these types of searches, you hear some rumors on who's being interviewed or who potential candidates are. And by and large, we've heard nothing on the OC job because until yesterday, Chip Kelly was the OC. But all of last week, we really didn't hear much on any kind of external interviews going on for Ohio State's defensive coordinator position.
Yeah, I mean, from offensively, right? And again, we're going off of Buckeye Scoop rumor, and Buckeye Scoop's the one who, said Hartline is the guy. You got Kevin Wilson is available. Do you really want to go back to the Kevin Wilson? I mean, right?
I thought that maybe he would be a good hire, but then I remembered the type of scheme he would run for the running game, and I hate that. So maybe there is a better option out there.
So Jason Candle, we've gone there, done that. Jim Moorhead, who I think is it he? Jim Moorhead is at Akron, I believe, right? Jim Moorhead's at Akron. He's been mentioned. Will Stein has been mentioned, who's the offensive coordinator at Oregon and quarterback coach. Would Will Stein leave, right? And then Jeff Nixon, who's the offensive coordinator, running back coach at Syracuse, and then Brian Hartline. Of those guys who are mentioned, and that I'm just going off of what 11 Warriors is reporting, do any of those guys excite you? Do you look at Syracuse's offense? Let's throw the ball 60 times a game with Kyle McCord and go, that's the offense I want to run.
Well, I mean, I think let's be honest, too. This is going to be a position where it's Ryan Day's going to come in and say, here's my offense. You can put your tweaks on it, but this is what we're going to run. And I guess to a degree, if you're a candidate for this position, you have to be able to kind of put up with that, don't you? You have to be able to tolerate that.
When I was talking to someone at the Woody about when Jim Knowles left, and I mentioned Gutierrez, and they said, well, it makes sense to me because Ryan doesn't want any changes. He liked the way it went last year. He liked the staff last year, and he doesn't want any changes. And outside of, all right, the Oregon game where they made the defensive changes, and then the boneheaded play calling against Michigan, can you go back with Ryan Day's tenure as an offensive coordinator, with C.J. Stroud and Dwayne Haskins and Justin Fields? And what beef do you have with Ryan Day? The only beef I have is the Kyle McCord year and losing to Michigan, right? And then they hired Chip Kelly, and then the offense seemed to be a lot better under Will Howard. But I look at like Ryan Day as a play caller, and I go, I have no problem with Ryan Day as a play caller. The problem I had is the quarterback. Kyle McCord as the quarterback. Do you remember during the Justin Fields, C.J. Stroud days of being upset at how the offense was?
So what I will tell you is this:
the defense.
The main complaint for me for the C.J. Stroud and even Dwayne Haskins era was the inability for the Ohio State offense, or not the inability. Red zone scoring was the biggest gripe I had, and if you remember, and you could go back, because you had a guy like Stroud and even Dwayne Haskins who was not a threat at all to run the ball. The running game was not good enough to be able to score once the field was condensed and once you got in the red zone. I think we can effectively say that Ohio State took care of that absolutely this year. I want to say they had one of the best or highest red zone efficiencies, not only scoring, but touchdown conversion than anybody else in the country. So is that because Will Howard was mobile? Is that because the offensive line was better? Is that because you had the tandem of Quinshon Judkins and Trey Henderson back there? I don't know, but I know that made them much more dangerous, that you didn't have to hope to hit a bomb or a 60-yard pass or a 40-yard run because you were not necessarily scared, but concerned getting inside the red zone and having to score a touchdown. So, they took care of that this past year. We saw a much more efficient team. inside the red zone. But I guess my biggest complaint, and if I remember, one of the biggest complaints of those offenses was red zone efficiency because they just didn't have it once they got inside the 20.
You know, if I'm Ryan Day and I like where everything is headed, I have no problem with Brian Hartline, the offensive coordinator. And guess when you first get to it, if you have a spring game. You know, there's more and more coaches now. I saw Matt Rule over the weekend talk about how he probably isn't going to have a spring game because he goes like, why would I give an opportunity for any team to cherry pick my players? If someone looks good in the spring game and there's still a spring portal to be had, someone could just look at that spring game. Well, we like that offensive lineman or we like that wide receiver. We're going to pay him. And then Nebraska doesn't have the ability to match. Matt Rule made a perfect. If I'm Ryan Day, I don't know if I do a spring game. I might just have guys do punt, pass, and kick. Hey, you show up. 80,000 people will show up. We kind of do a two-hand touch scrimmage, but we don't show too much. We just won a national title. That the spring games might go away just from the standpoint of coaches don't want to do it and showcase any talent. Why do I want to showcase any talent, have talent look good, and then someone take our talent away? So I think that makes sense. But maybe Ryan Day uses spring game for hey, Brian Hartline, call some plays. Let's see how you call. We'll put you in situations and see how you call plays. The one thing that can improve, though, Sam, is if, let's say, Gutierrez on the defense, Ryan Hartline on the offense, got to do an offensive line coach. The one thing is, what was the knock on Justin Frye?
Did not recruit enough, and he swung and missed an awful lot with recruits.
Okay, but he could really coach.
Yes.
Right? Okay, and that's why he's with the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
What was kind of the knock on Chip Kelly? Recruited when he wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't really around a lot. You know, I was talking to Steve Hellwagon today, and he goes, kind of Chip Kelly would kind of come in and call the plays on the weekends, and then you wouldn't see him for like 3 or 4 days. So now you get to hire a guy who's full-time in recruiting. And then what was the knock on Jim Knowles? He wouldn't go on the road. So now what you do is, let's say Gutierrez is my defensive coordinator and Brian Hartline is my offensive coordinator. Now I can hire guys and cherry pick guys who are the best recruiters in the country to do position jobs, because Ohio State can pay their position coaches. You know, if you're getting paid $800,000 or $1 million somewhere, Ohio State can give you 1.5 and have you fill the same role with them. And then we're going to take a school's best recruiter away and give him a job on our staff, where normally Justin Frye wasn't a good recruiter. Chip Kelly wasn't that into it. Jim Knowles didn't want to do it. Now I got to replace 3 coaches. Instead of replacing them, I got in-house candidates, and now I can hire people who can really recruit.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the positive spin on it, is I get 3 guys who can't recruit, not good recruiters, don't want to recruit, and I can bring in 3 guys who can recruit. Keep the staff the same, because I like the way it went, and there's something about continuity where I don't have to change any type of defensive system, right? All the kids there know the defense. I'm not bringing in the guy who's changing anything. So I like the way things are going, and then I could bring in 3 assistants who can recruit at an elite level. Because that's what Ryan Day was doing last week. Ryan Day did the Jimmy Fallon show and Kelly Clarkson, but Ryan Day was also out on the recruiting trail.
Yeah. Do we know what style of defense Randy Bates does run at Pitt?
I don't follow Pitt football. I know they were not good this year. I know they've been good in years past.
See if I can look that up real quick.
And remember, another name I keep hearing is Mike Tressel as well.
Yeah. I could reach out to an individual who may know Mike and see where we stand on that. I do want to get us to break, but we talked about Justin Frye going to Arizona. I've got the perfect candidate that the Ohio State should go hire.
I know too, from offensive line too. Is he in Arizona?
I'm not sure where he is.
Because I have a guy too, and he runs an NFL camp, and he gets NFL players, offensive linemen ready for upcoming seasons.
The individual I'm speaking of, I believe, lives in Cleveland. But maybe we're talking about the same guy.
We're talking about the same guy, and if it is, he lives in Phoenix now. And he's lived in Phoenix for a long time.
Okay.
Because he runs a camp. I bet you we're thinking of the same guy, because Pat Elflein used to go to him.
Okay.
A lot of offensive line. He runs like a performance center for offensive linemen in Phoenix.
I think we're talking about the same guy, and I think he would be a home run hire.
Yes. So he's a possibility. We will talk about the former center of the Buckeyes and the Browns. Yeah, he lives in Phoenix. And we have breaking Browns news. Start drinking from the bottle, Browns fans. We're back in 60 seconds. It's the OVE podcast. Remember, subscribe, like, follow, share. New channel. Heard at work or in an accident. Let attorney Robert Schuerger go to war for you, warforyou.com.
We go to war for you.
At Schuerger Trial Attorneys, we don't back down. Accident? Call us today at 877-WAR-FOR-YOU or visit warforyou.com for a free consultation. Know your rights because results matter. That's 877-WAR-FOR-YOU. 877-WAR-FOR-YOU or visit warforyou.com.
War for you, warforyou.com.
Denrob Management has over 40 years experience in all aspects of payroll, processing checks, tax filing, W-2 and 1099 preparation. First-time customers get 50% off their first 3 months processing fees. Give them a call now, 614-297-1158 or denrobmanagement.com. OVE podcast, warforyou.com. I forgot to do that right in the beginning of the show. Nothing's changed. So, yeah, just so you know, Buckeye Scoop reporting that Brian Hartline's going to be named the offensive coordinator. I mentioned that today on the morning show, Sam, where I thought, all right, your guys right there, have Hartline do it, and then you can hire either do they have a quarterback coach?
Yeah, so one of the things I was kind of looking through, Billy Fessler, who I believe was an offensive analyst for Ohio State, is going to be named as the quarterback's coach.
Billy Fessler.
Yeah. Recruiting and coaching staff that deep is not something that's my forte, but based upon what I was reading, that's what they're looking like they're going to do. And keep in mind, even though Ryan Day is not the quarterback coach in title, he's the one that's going to be probably a coach in the quarterback room up more than anybody else.
Yeah, Fessler was with Akron and UCLA. There you go.
Wonder if he was ran across Chip Kelly at UCLA.
Yes, he was hired by UCLA January of last year. So, yeah, no. So if he was January of last year, maybe he for a short period of time.
A little bit of crossover.
Yeah. So Chip hired him, and now he's here. Hopefully he can recruit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as far as Ohio State goes in the quarterback room, I think, again, Ryan Day, especially on the recruiting side, that's his baby. They get a 4 or 5 star guy every year, sometimes 2 in 1 year. But now you got to get him in the room. You got to not only to get him here, but you got to keep him here and develop him. So hopefully they're able to continue to do that.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time when you are a top coaching staff in college football where people are going to take your coaches, man. It happened to Nick Saban. I mean, we act surprised here because some of the guys who left was Greg Schiano, Kevin Wilson, Jeff Hafley. You know, there were just different, Chris Ash who left. I mean, we lost guys here too. I mean, it happens. We just probably haven't lost 3 in this quick amount of time, but when you put together good staffs and the money, I mean, Chip Kelly's making $6 million a year, like you mentioned, Sam. That's insane. I personally always thought that Chip Kelly at 64, 65 years old would finish his career with Ryan Day for like the next 5 years. Hey, I'm making $2 million a year. I'm coaching with my best friend. I can make a quick $10 million. I'm really not asked to do much. I could just hang out with my buddy and have fun. Well, when they're throwing $6 million your way and letting you run the offense and Pete Carroll saying, hey, Chip, here's $6 million rent and I can live in Las Vegas and there's no state income taxes. Yeah, I'm going to take that all day long. And Chip still has something to prove. Chip, for the most part, has been a failure in pro football. He's been success in college football with Oregon and Ohio State, but he's been a big failure in the NFL. Not a huge failure. I mean, he was all right with Philadelphia. Huge failure with San Francisco. But this is a way for Chip to redeem himself. And then maybe he once has a desire to be an NFL head coach again. And if he does well, he's got 2 things can happen with Chip. 1, Pete Carroll retires in 3 years and he takes over the Raiders, or he gets another job somewhere else as a head coach if the Raiders do well. No, I think they're a dumpster fire. But if I look at all the hire so far in the offseason, Sam, I think Pete Carroll was the best hire.
Absolutely.
Pete Carroll's a winner, man.
Yeah, the guy's proven on both levels, I guess, on the college football level and on the NFL level. And he was just kind of hanging out, sitting there doing his thing, and picked up the phone. So you can't really blame him. Like you said, he's still close enough. Pete Carroll's still going to be close enough to the West Coast so he can go do his surfing and get a suntan on the beach. What is it, a less than an hour flight or a 4-hour drive? So, good on him. And like you said, don't discount. I know it's huge in the NHL. Don't discount the fact that Nevada is an income tax-free state.
That's what John Gruden did. John Gruden signed that deal with Oakland, and he deferred the money to start when he was with Vegas. Yep. It's no income tax. Hey, we might have income tax here. Keep the tariffs going, baby.
Hey, man, tariffs. If the tariffs do their jobs, may reduce federal income tax to nothing. That won't ever happen, but a boy can dream, can he? It could, dude. I mean, that's the goal, right? To do these tariffs, to even it out, then no federal income taxes. Dude, the economy. Dude, have you seen crypto right now? You keep track of crypto? Uh-huh.
Dude, it is crashing. The market's crashing. And you know who's going to benefit? And this is not financial advice, but crypto's crashing, and it's going to crash for a long time. We're probably going to get in a recession. And you know who's going to just kick ass? Rich people. Because they're going to buy everything.
I don't know if you saw the Canadian dollar when compared to the American dollar was at an all-time low the other day.
Oh, it's only gonna get worse, dude.
It's back up a little bit, but it was at it's still pretty down because we were in Canada and Montreal and pretty touristy city, relatively expensive. I didn't think it was that bad at all, relatively speaking, because U.S. dollar has a lot greater value compared to the Canadian dollar, and Canadian dollar is down even more now than it was then. So, maybe all the people on social media, X and Twitter, bitching and moan about this don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
So it'll be interesting too, who they hire offensive coordinator, who they hire defensive coordinator. Is LaCharles Bentley the guy you're thinking for?
Absolutely.
Offensive? Yeah, he's in Phoenix and he runs a offensive line academy, and a lot of the guys who play offensive line and a lot of former Buckeyes go there in the off season and they work with LaCharles.
He would be
academy.
Again, I think he would be an absolute slam dunk. Guys from Ohio, obviously played at Ohio State, was one of the best centers in the NFL before he basically had a career ending injury, was a Remington Award winner at Ohio State, first team All Big Ten, consensus first team All-American. So he's got a tree in the grove. Like, he is everything that you could possibly want out of an offensive line coach at Ohio State. I think you pick up the phone, make that phone call, and see where you get.
Yeah.
But I guess his question would be, do you want to recruit?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Do you want to give up your business, though, for that as well? I mean, you've built a business for the last decade.
Guess what? If you've got the business, you could probably use it as a recruiting tool. And I would imagine the money that you're going to be bringing in from Ohio State, you could probably pay somebody to act as a GM for the business to keep it going. And who's to say that this step in his career wouldn't give him more credentials or more credit down the road for when he does return back to it. So there's ways to keep it going, and also taking this position at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I'm sure they've had contact, right? A former Buckeye, Ryan Day, reach out to him.
I'd hope so. The guy was an absolute stud in the pros and in college. Bleeds scarlet and gray. I don't know why he wouldn't at least take the phone call.
Bad news if you're a Browns fan today, and we talked about this, is if you want to rebuild a team, there was only one way the Browns were going to rebuild this team. And Myles Garrett is not going to be effective when you're ready to compete. Myles Garrett today, if you missed it, requested a trade from the Browns. Adam Schefter has it up on X. He announced in a statement, he says, I love this city. It's my home. I want to win. I want to compete at the biggest stage, and they are not going to be allowed to. He said the goal was to go from Cleveland to Canton And it's always been a compete to win a Super Bowl. He said in the statement, Sam, they cannot get to a Super Bowl. There is no way they can, with their cap problems, they can get to the Super Bowl. Andrew Berry can deny it all he wants. They could say, we're not going to trade Myles Garrett. He came out last week. Someone said, if you get offered 2 first-round picks, will you trade Myles Garrett? The problem is now you have a player who is officially requested trade, right? If you don't trade him before the draft, he could simply say, yeah, I'm not going to play for you. And then what do you have after that? You have nothing, and then his value goes south, and then he's worth nothing. And then you're trading him in off season. You can't get anything for him. What? First of all, what's Myles Garrett's worth on the open market in your opinion?
I'd say 2 firsts and maybe a third, maybe more. I don't know. That's not my. It's hard for me to gauge the value of the NFL draft picks. I know NFL teams, in my opinion, overvalue picks. But the way I see it is I think this is a good, and I'm Mr. Pessimistic. I've been a Browns fan for far too long. I think this is a good thing for a couple of reasons. I think primarily and first and foremost I think it's a direct recognition that the Browns organization realized they are in full rebuild mode. Myles Garrett, I think, had come out multiple times and said he didn't want to be a part of a rebuild. So the fact that he is now publicly coming out and requesting a trade leads me to believe the Browns organization knows exactly where they are and what they need to accomplish. So it's really hard to rebuild a franchise if you don't first recognize that's where you are, I guess, in the NFL cycle. And second, this is going to drastically speed that up. The amount of capital that you're going to be able to accumulate out of this trade is going to be monumental, and hopefully it fills the gap of the last 3 or 4 years where you haven't had a first-round draft pick. And for a team that's in money issues, having money issues, this is going to free up some cap. So, maybe this is, unfortunately, as much as I love Myles Garrett, maybe this is the best thing that actually could possibly happen to the Browns organization.
Follow along with me here. What team in the NFL has to make the biggest bad team? Which bad team is on the cusp of being good on paper and desperately needs to make a splash? Because their GM is ready to get fired again.
Don't say it.
What?
Is it in the AFC North?
No.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say the Bengals.
No. Bengals got their own problems that we'll talk about with their players.
Yeah.
If the Chicago Bears, who are pick number 10, say to the Bengals or say to the Browns, hey, we'll give you 10 overall, a number 2 that could be up to number 1, meaning if Myles Garrett gets over like 14 sacks a year, that number 2 next year becomes the number 1. So it's a 2025 number 1, 10 overall, a 2026 number 1 conditional, or it's a number 2, and then a 2025 number 3. If you're the Browns, do you make that trade? Because I think both teams do it. The Bears need an impact player, and they're giving up 10 for there's no player in the draft that's going to give them the on-the-field impact that a Myles Garrett would. They're $62 million under the cap. They can sign Myles Garrett to a big deal and make him the highest paid defensive player and not miss a beat. And then the Bears have an impact player where if you are number 10, you're rolling the dice. All right, what defensive end can we get? They're stacked offensively. Okay, maybe they get another offensive lineman, but in back-to-back drafts, that's what they've done is draft offensive linemen. Or we can get Myles Garrett for the 10th overall pick, a 3rd round pick, and then a conditional possible first if he meets certain conditions. If you're the Browns, 1, you draft your quarterback number 2, you draft your replacement for Myles Garrett, who's going to be there, 10th overall, and you get the best of both worlds. So it's a win-win.
Yeah,
if you trade Myles Garrett, Sam, and they're going to trade him now. There's no tiptoeing around this. But let's say you do trade him to someone else. All right, Atlanta's picking up 15. They absolutely need an edge rusher. There's teams 15 and back that could use them, but if there's a top 10 pick available for you and you're the Browns, I think you got to jump at it. Because I'm looking at the draft order. And you look at, all right, the Titans aren't going to give you the number 1 overall pick for Myles Garrett, correct?
Probably
He
no.
wouldn't go there. The Giants aren't going to do that. The Patriots probably aren't going to do that at
Does
4.
Myles Garrett have a no trade clause?
No. But, I mean, you got to look at team realistically of what they're going to do. Is New England going to give up the 4th overall pick?
Well, and that's where I was going with that is
rebuilding.
If you're Myles Garrett, do you want to go from the Browns to the Titans?
No. But if you're Myles Garrett, though, you might go to the Bears because they're ready to win, correct?
Tough division. And, of course, the Browns go to Chicago next season, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, tough division, but what gives you a better chance to win? Chicago with a franchise quarterback.
Yeah. I'd say that is not a bad, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of who else is kind of on the cusp right now that is kind of like right there. I mean, does San Francisco have the cap space to take that on? You put him opposite one of the was that Nicky Bosa?
Yeah.
It's pretty nasty.
The 49ers could do it. The Cardinals could do it. The Commanders can do it. The Raiders can do it. Do the Raiders make a big splash?
He and Max Crosby opposite wouldn't be terrible.
But are you giving up the 6th overall pick?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. That's the question, right?
But is Myles Garrett's better than anyone in this draft, correct? I mean, you could see now. I know there's certain teams that don't want to do it, and I know there's certain teams he probably wouldn't go. But would Myles Garrett go to the Raiders and go, yeah, I think we can win?
Well, think if you pair this up too with the reports that the Browns are very closely considering Abdul Carter as their draft pick. So you're taking Myles Garrett out, getting 3 draft picks potentially, and plugging Abdul Carter, your next young stud, hopefully in. So that could make a lot of sense as well.
Don't you think they need a quarterback, though?
Oh, absolutely.
But again, Sanders at number 2 and then take the best defensive lineman at 10.
Yeah, I think, best case scenario, just where you are as the Browns. I'm not in love with any of these quarterbacks unless you can get one of that, the 4 guys competing for the 3rd best quarterback, somewhere down the line. I'm not a big Shedeur Sanders fan. I'm not a big Cam Ward fan. I think what you need to do is you trade down, continue to accumulate the assets because you do have, especially losing Myles Garrett, you got a lot of holes to fill. And I'm just not in love with any of the quarterbacks in this class. So trade down. There's plenty of veteran guys that you can get for a year or 2 for cheap. And then maybe the draft class next year is a little bit better. But here's my question, I guess.
But is next year's draft class better, though? I
don't know. That's the gamble, I guess. That's the roll of the dice because coming into this year, we were pretty sure that Tim A was going to be the number 1 quarterback taken from Georgia, and that was going to be the ad. He was going to run away with the Heisman. Now he's down nose deep in Cavender stuff down in Miami, getting $4 million a year, and took a drastic step back this year, all things considered. So my question to you is, if you're the Cleveland Browns, do you try with this trade to set Myles Garrett up in the best possible position, or do you do what's best for the franchise?
I do what's best for the franchise.
I mean, you have to, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that's the business.
Absolutely. I do what's best for my franchise. I don't even worry about anything else.
I completely agree. And
I think they will within reason because they got to find a trade partner, but they also have to do what's best with their team. So they're going to call to me, it seems like Myles Garrett just wants to get the hell out of Cleveland. Like they have when he talks about winning the Super Bowl, I want to leave. This team doesn't have a chance to win a Super Bowl. He could go to the Bears and go, well, I think this is a young up and coming team. They have a quarterback, new head coach in Ben Johnson. He's an innovative play caller. Look at all the young talent on this team. They got cap space to do something with. I can go on this defensive line and wreak havoc defensively. I mean, I wouldn't be afraid to go to Chicago if I was a player with the talent they have. I just think they're an inept organization. But you have to look at it and go, in this draft, if you want to win, is there a better player that you could take than Myles Garrett, who's 28 years old and he could dominate for the next 5 years? Is there a player we could take? Because you got to look at it too, Sam. Look at the New York Jets. I mean, is there a player the New York Jets look at and go, well, we'll give 7 for Myles Garrett? I don't think the Jets has the money. You look at who's got the money to do this. It's the Patriots, Raiders, Commanders, Cardinals, Chargers, Bears, Vikings, 49ers, Bengals, Lions, Titans.
You don't think Mike Vrabel in New England's got an absolute hofty right now just thinking about that potential?
Yeah, but do you trade? Yeah, I don't know if you trade I don't know if Robert Kraft would allow them to trade the 4th overall because they need offensive weapons. That's a possible Travis Hunter, right?
Possible, yeah.
I don't know if I want to go all in defensively. To me, the offense is I got to build around my young quarterback.
Yeah, a lot of possibilities,
but it also depends on what you do free agent wise.
Yeah, it's a lot of possibilities and ever evolving, right?
But the one thing from the Browns' point of view, Sam, if they don't react quickly, meaning right day one of free agency starts, then there's going to be teams that have spent the cap, and then the teams that you could trade with shrinks because they can't afford Myles Garrett, right? So you almost have to have a trade in place before free agency starts, the league year starts, because if you don't, teams are going to get their defensive ends elsewhere, and then the market for Myles Garrett will close. And then once the draft passes and you go, well, we're not trading Myles Garrett, then he just says, well, I'm not playing. And then what do you have? You have a rebuild without your best player. And then you're praying that he plays another season with you. And he's not going to play another season with you. I think when you go out publicly, you're not doing this behind the scenes. You are releasing a statement and saying, effing trade me. I don't want to be here. The Browns have to trade.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I said, unfortunately, with the decisions you've made in the past with Deshaun Watson, you've screwed your money situation up so badly that guess what? You need to rebuild because you don't necessarily have the money to go out and get the guys. And unfortunately, Deshaun was an absolute bust at the most important position in all of sport. So you've done this to yourself, and unfortunately, it looks like it's going to cost you Myles Garrett's career.
Yeah,
in Cleveland.
I would fire Paul DePodesta, Andrew Berry, and everybody involved at this point.
How don't you? But they just got
extended. In NFL history. It's the worst trade in NFL history. It's worse. Here's why it's worse than Herschel Walker. Because one, all right, Minnesota gave Dallas the Super Bowl with all those picks, but it wasn't like Minnesota became a dumpster fire. I mean, Herschel was all right. He didn't take him over the top, but Minnesota didn't become a dumpster fire of a franchise. When you traded Deshaun Watson, you became a dumpster fire of a franchise. It had reverse effect on you. That's why it's the worst trade. It benefit the Texans, even though they haven't won a Super Bowl, but it's made them a perennial playoff team. We've seen it 2 years in a row. And then now your team's a dumpster fire in cap hell, and the best player in the NFL wants out, and you're going to have to trade him.
Yeah.
Reset. You're in cap hell for the next, Sam, they are in cap hell. If you look at, right, they're $30 million over the cap this year. In 2026, they're $1 million over the cap, right? And then 2027, you have $155 million to spend. So for a short-term period, you are in cap hell. But how do you build when you have no money? Usually bad teams, look at the Patriots. We just talked about it, plenty of money. But you have no money to build. So how do I build? Well, okay, I got the second overall pick, and then I got early picks in the second, third, all the way down, right? Where I can start getting second-round starter, third-round starter. I get my quarterback. I get my running back. Another first-round pick gives me a defensive end to replace Myles Garrett. I get an early third. Boom, I get 2 early third-round picks where, boy, I could really start building. So when we have cap money in year 3, we can really do something in year 3 where I got to build. Now, the problem I have is Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, those are the guys I want to bottom out with. To me, I don't want to give the guys who are going to get fired a chance to rebuild.
Yeah, and that's how, I guess, why I'm still scratching my head over why Andrew Berry or how Andrew Berry was able to get an extension.
Because I think that they thought of it, because the extension was before the beginning of the season. I think they thought if the quarterback plays decent, meaning if he's just even Steven, they're going to go to the playoffs, right? Because that's all they needed. Then getting into the season, I don't know if they really thought, all right, Deshaun Watson's not going to play this year, but we can get a quarterback. And even if he's okay, we still have a pretty good defense. We need help running the football, but we have another second-round pick. We could draft a guy in the third round if we want. We can get our running back and our draft needs in the draft where we can still compete and still be pretty good. And now I think they realize, all right, oh crap, Myles Garrett doesn't want to be here. We might want to completely.
And that's the thing, though. I don't understand why, if you're the one signing the check, because I just heard a lot of assumptions and ifs there that we all know this past year did not come to fruition. Why rush it when you don't have to sign them to that? Wait to see how the season pans out to say, okay, this worked out like we thought, or hey, this was a colossal F up. I just don't understand why all these guys are always in a rush to get these guys signed when they're kind of they're teetering on the plank to begin with. So why would you rush out to sign these guys? I just, I would run an organization far different than these owners would. Or do.
Well, the problem is Jimmy Haslam is been hypnotized by Paul DePodesta that Andrew Berry, an analytics guy, is the right way to go and lead your team for some reason. Maybe they have naked pictures. I don't know. But the way I agree with you, the analytics way to build a football team is not working for the Browns. They put their money in the Deshaun Watson basket and they failed. Time to move on. Let someone else build this team. The problem is the guys who aren't going to be here in 3 years when you're ready to take that next step are the guys who are drafting. I'm relying on a guy to draft second overall and then a possible other first-round pick to build my franchise who probably isn't going to be here.
Yeah. They're going to lie in the bed they make. Like the ripple effect of the Deshaun Watson trade and everything that has transpired since is going to be studied on. This is exactly what you do not do if you're trying to run an organization in the NFL. Because it's costing you. You're probably your current fan favorite. I would say Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb are probably the fan favorites, and you're losing them because you married Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And it was a colossal mistake.
And then he's not going to play for you next year.
Right.
That's amazing. We take a quick 60-second break. Some good news for the Blue Jackets. Good news, bad news. OVE podcast. 60 seconds. We're back. Hey, it's Torg for Custom Air. You know, when it comes to my HVAC system, I don't trust just anyone. I trust Custom Air. These guys are fast, reliable, and they know their stuff. Fall's just around the corner, and now's the perfect time to make sure your HVAC equipment is running at its best. Don't wait until it's too late. Get ahead of the game. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my home, and neither should you. Visit them on the web at customairco.com and keep your home comfortable all season long. Custom solutions, custom comfort, Custom Air. Thinking of buying or selling a home? Give Lauren Torgerson a call with NextHome Experience. Lauren has been servicing the Columbus metropolitan area for 10 years. So whether you're a first-time home buyer, considering building, want to upsize or downsize, Lauren can help you with all your real estate needs. Get a free market analysis for your area and get started working on making tomorrow's dreams happen today. Call or text Lauren at 614-296-3952, 614-296-3952, or email at torgersonlauren@gmail.com. This is the OVE podcast. Remember, subscribe, like, follow, share. New YouTube channel. Appreciate you. As we build the YouTube channel back up, going to give away that Urban Meyer autographed helmet. We talked about it last week, Sam, with Elias Peterson being on the trade block. JT Miller, obviously the Vancouver Canucks made the right deal. I think they got taken in the trade with JT Miller. I don't think they traded JT Miller to the Rangers. I don't think they got even close to equal value, but at least it's over, right? And they move on.
Well, they changed. And by the way, is it Peterson or Pedersen?
Peterson. It's not here. That's what matters.
Gold jacket, green jacket. Who gives a shit? I'm pretty sure it's Pedersen, so I'm going to go with that. The problem with the Vancouver Canucks is I believe they have three guys last name Pedersen or head, one of which they've also traded the defenseman that was Pedersen away as well. But I think you're right. I think you made the right decision in keeping the younger Elias Pedersen. So I guess the scenario we talked about last week and the Blue Jackets' potential of acquiring him, it seems to be squashed and null and void at this point. But I'm curious, the Rangers. The Rangers are a case study for me because you've got a team that's drastically underperformed with a lot of talent of which a lot of them have been traded away this year. So I'm curious. They are in striking distance of the playoffs. I believe they're a point or two out of the playoff wild card at this point. but why are you going out and making some of these trades to bring in these players when, maybe is this the last ditch effort with the window being open for them? I don't know, but man, they're kind of going at it, trying to get back to prominence for a team that was, I believe, in the Eastern Conference Finals maybe 2 years ago.
No, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. So they look at it as, all right, we need a jump start. We had a slow start. We bring JT Miller, who was there, and then I think he went to Tampa and then went to Vancouver after that. I think they bring in a veteran leader. They traded their captain this year. So I think they look at it as, hey, we made a run. We still got time. We're a little over the halfway mark. We played 50-some games. We're right there in the playoffs. Who knows what can happen? Maybe we can get a better seed, and then we can make a run in the playoffs. It's kind of a wide open Eastern Conference. So I think they look at it as making another run, and they look at it as a team like the Blue Jackets ahead of them and go, all right, Blue Jackets aren't going to sustain this. We can leapfrog those guys. Those are teams in front of us we can leapfrog. By the way, the Athletic have their prospect list out. Scott Wheeler, 32 farm teams, has the Jackets 6th in prospect ratings.
Not bad. They've been top 5 for a while. So, maybe starting to see some of those. And what Blue Jackets fans have, I guess, always kind of clamored for is, yeah, we see them being the youngest team in the NHL year after year and see them in the top 5 in prospects, but they never able to turn that into anything in the big clubs. So we're finally starting to see a little bit of payoff in that regard.
Yeah, last night I watched that game. That was a rough one from the standpoint of, you win a big game in Vegas and you win one in Utah, overtime games, and you had opportunities. You're up 2-1, you're up 3-2 in that one. At one point at the end of the second period, you're down to 4 defensemen. You have a couple forwards that get hit with pucks there. Marchenko didn't even come back, did he?
No, Porty reported broken jaw 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow. So that's some bad news.
That's not good.
All from someone shooting a puck and then hitting them in the right on the bench. Oh boy, that's just bad news for the Blue Jackets. That's season over, right? For these guys.
I don't know, man, because you're going to start getting some guys back here soon. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the season that Marchenko was having, I believe he was tops in the NHL plus minus for forwards. So you saw him take a step forward, and you saw him really solidify and help solidify that first line. But yeah, it's certainly not good.
What's Shedikoff? Where is
he's skating. He'll be back, I would say, within the week.
Okay, so he's going to be back after the All-Star run because at Saturday's their last game, and then they're off 2 weeks.
Yeah, they've got the.
Here's
are you going to watch any of the Four Nations?
Yeah, what are they doing with that? Where's it at?
So no All-Star game or break this year. They're having a break, but no game.
Yeah, they're off 2 weeks.
You're going to have the United States, Canada, Finland, Sweden, all facing off in what they're calling the Four Nations. So,
and where are the games going to be played?
The games are in Boston and Montreal.
Okay.
So if you're familiar, if there are any rugby,
like round robin, and then the 2 best teams play each other in the finals.
So I'm pretty sure that's how they're going to do it. Each team will play each other, and then you go from there. If anyone's familiar with the Six Nations, any rugby fans out there, it's going to be similar to that. So obviously the American team is comprised of all American players, Canada, Sweden, Finland, so on and so forth. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be cool to kind of see these guys playing and representing country when it's not the Olympics.
Yeah, I'll watch. I'll watch this. This is perfect. The 2-week break though for guys who are out like 6 to 8 weeks. That means they come back in, like the beginning of April. We can start getting some guys back. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I know Boone's close. I guess they've been kind of eyeing getting him back for the outdoor game the whole way.
He'll be back for the game. I
keep hearing Goodbranson's name mentioned. I just have a hard time feeling that if he had the shoulder surgery, I think he did. You don't come back from that in a year or in the same season.
He says he'll be back. He won't be back in March though. He'll be back kind of. When you look at April 1st, they have 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They have 10 games left in April. I think that's where this team gets healthy. Unfortunately, I just don't know if they're going to be able to keep it going. I mean, I'm looking at how many games they have now until the All-Star break. They play Buffalo. They probably got about 15 games. Looking at it, yeah, they have almost 20 games before they get the bulk of their team back.
So we talked about it last week, the beginning of this 4-game stretch. Vegas, Utah on the road, Dallas on the road, and then they're going to Buffalo tomorrow. If they can come out of this with 6 points, that's a huge win, both in the fact that Ohio State, Blue Jackets typically they're getting better on the road, but started off the year abysmally on the road, playing good teams. If they were able to crank out 6 points out of this 4-game trip, that would be huge. They have that ability to go to Buffalo tomorrow night and do so. Obviously we want to focus on each game and kind of what's happening to the roster as a result. But if they are able to get through this 4-game gauntlet with 6 points, that's big.
Yeah, I just don't know if you can have 2 players that are a point per game guy out for a significant amount of time.
Well, and you're right. I don't disagree. And you know what? I'll be disappointed if they don't make the playoffs. But again, I don't think anybody thought they would even be in contention for the playoffs this year. So the way I see it, it's house money. Again, I'll be disappointed if we don't go to some playoff games in mid to late April. But so far, you're getting everything you wanted out of this team. You've got a good coach. So far, Don Waddell has proved himself. And you've seen some of these young kids that you've been hoping would take a step or two forward over the last few seasons. You're finally starting to see them do that and starting to project out what this team could be, this roster could be going forward. So
yeah, it's you could trade Provolov and be done with that saga instead of trade, right?
Good, yeah. I mean, I think he would probably garner a first-round pick.
And then you could take those picks, and then at draft time you can get a veteran.
So did you watch? I unfortunately had to turn it off. We were eating dinner, and I couldn't get the thing to work on my phone last night. I heard the game-winning goal was a little controversial. Went to review, and they allowed it. And
yeah, it was a high stick.
Okay.
It was a high stick, and it was legit, and I don't know why you could not, in Toronto, look at that play and go, that was a high stick goal. It was above the goalie. It was above the crossbar, and it hit the stick and then bounced in. It was completely a high stick. High stick.
This may sound like
it was 4-3, and then Dallas scored again. So
yeah, this may sound like Blue Jackets homer, and I understand that, but I don't know that I've ever seen a franchise come out on the short end, proverbially of the stick, than the Columbus Blue Jackets do for reviews.
No, I agree.
Like, we get jobbed so much, and I'll ask the question too. We talk about the NFL officiating and review in general. Why have review if you're not going to get it right?
Yeah, and to me, it was just obvious. I mean, I think it was obvious. All right, we're back tomorrow. First day on the channel. Remember, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you. Subscribe, like, follow, share. And we are back tomorrow at 3. Probably more Buckeye talk. Stanzi!
Well, of course. I mean, there's nothing better than being American. So, I mean, this is the greatest feeling. If you don't love it, leave it. USA, #1.